Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews, the only show that's going to teach you
how to be somebody.
Where in your life did you learn that you're not good enough?
Take what you're most passionate about and what you're most fearful of. What is the plan to overcome that fear? And what is the plan to enact that passion?
Welcome to Winners, Wallets, Worldviews. I am your host, AJ Armstrong. You can follow me on Instagram at Aaron Armstrong33. That's Aaron Armstrong33. Or you can always go to my website, aaronjarmstrong.com. Today, I have an awesome guest, awesome conversation we're going to have about getting started in house flipping and also some creative financing techniques you guys might be able to use if you start to run into that limiting belief about you need money to make money, that kind of thing. So without any further ado, here's my guest, Erin Helly. Erin, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yeah, this was really exciting. We had a chance to connect, and you were going to come to the Black Gold Summit, which was our West Point real estate investing first annual conference that we had, but you couldn't make it. You got caught up in some flights or something?
Yeah, my flight got canceled at the very last minute, and yeah, I couldn't get in there in time, so I missed it.
Yeah, so you were going to be one of the speakers or one of the people that was kind of helping mentor, if I remember correctly. And it was a shame because you have some awesome knowledge, as we talked to you on the phone, just about getting in the house flipping, wholesaling business itself.
Yeah, I was really excited. I was not really part of the planning, but kind of, trying to get involved as early as possible. So I sort of saw it unfold, and I was really excited for it. And unfortunately, I put my travel off to the last minute so I could spend Halloween evening with my girls, and that kind of bit me in the butt. So next year I'll be there the night before and we won't be in the same position.
Yeah, that's called nurturing the network right there. Just gotta making sure you're taking a weekend out, making sure you're getting out with the friends. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So you're a West Point grad of 2009, right?
Yep, that's right.
And what was your background? Just a little about you, kind of getting into everything.
So I swam at West Point. And then I was an engineer after I graduated. So I did 8 years, just about 8 years on active duty. My husband and I actually were in the same company for all 4 years. We never scrambled. And we...
While at West Point, the same company.
Yes, the same company all 4 years. And then actually just by chance, we ended up in the same battalion coming out of West Point. So it was totally fate, I guess you could say. And we hadn't even started dating at that point, and we got married a couple years after that. But we're both engineers, and our careers were kind of going in the same direction. And then he went special forces, and I stayed engineer, and it was just kind of hard at that point to stay on the same path, I guess, and just to be on the same schedule, same timeline, and in the same location. And then we had our first daughter, and I thought that we would be able to kind of do the dual military thing for a little while, but I went back to work after maternity leave, and 3 days in, I got an email saying that I was getting put on orders to go to Afghanistan. So literally, and it was actually also, yes, the same. My husband had already been on orders for a while to go to Iraq. So our daughter would have been 6 months old when we both would have left. And we decided that night that I was going to get out, and I resigned the next day and was a civilian 5 months later.
Yeah. People don't realize that. And, you forget about it too. Just the on and off, the tag teaming of being a parent like that when you have dual military, and hats off to the people that can pull that lifestyle off. That's really something, especially during your time, when it was just very active deployments going over to the Middle East and stuff like that, where it's just husbands on, wife's on, husband's, just back and forth like that with your children. So yes, I totally understand the struggle.
Yep.
So you get out as a civilian, and then how did you decide to come upon investing into real estate and getting into house flipping and stuff like that?
So I thought about it for about 2 years. Well, I actually it was something I always wanted to do. But just when I was
watching HGTV and just
yes, exactly. Just something I grew up. My dad's an iron worker. He built the 2 houses that I grew up in,
Wow.
And he jokes that I helped build it. I was probably 10 when we built our second one, but I've been around that my whole life. Definitely come from a family of entrepreneurs, so I just have that sort of motivation, I guess, drive toward that. And then I just always wanted to get into it. But when I was on active duty, just never really considered like a side gig or anything like that, and didn't know anybody doing it. Didn't even know that you could really do that like in your spare time. And so when I got out and I all of a sudden had a whole lot of spare time, I started looking into it, and I wanted to buy something. I wanted to either buy an investment or buy something that I could flip, but I had no one to really bounce ideas off of. I had nobody to, review a deal with me and tell me I was on the right track, or, I'm missing something, or this could be good, or, I just didn't have anybody or anything to kind of direct me. And I looked into some of the big training things like Fortune Builders, that was like, it was like $25,000 or something. And I was just like, where would I, if
Is that like just some course, Fortune Builders? I'm not familiar.
I forget what his name is, but it's Bigger Pockets does,
I gotcha.
One of the guys on HGTV. He was a football player, Than something. I can't remember his last
the dude
name.
that went to Yale or something like that.
Yeah, so
Played football at Yale.
so he's super successful. He had a TV show, an HGTV show. But yeah, so you go to like a free seminar, and then you go to a 3-day class, and then you do this like mastermind program or something, and it's like $25,000, which some people have had great success with. But my mentality was, I would rather put that $25,000 toward an investment, something that could make me, cash flow.
Sure.
So I really didn't commit to the education too much until just recently. I did the White Feather Investments Real Estate Investor Accelerator is what it's called. And I actually recently was hired by them about 6 weeks ago, and I'm helping them facilitate that course. I was the honor grad of that course back in June, and just grew a great network of Service Academy grads. So that's under like the Service Academy Business Mastermind umbrella. And so it's marketed all towards Service Academy grads, and I'm in a mastermind with them as well. And just kind of that network gave me the courage to sort of take my business to the next level. But that was, I'm definitely jumping ahead of myself here. That was once I started already getting into investing. But what took me so long to like finally take the plunge was just not knowing how to start, and just not having that confidence to do it. And so that's what I want to help people with right there. It's just an extra set of eyes. I can help you with the negotiations. I can help you review the deals. I can help you look at your market, and just either reiterate what you think or point out something that you don't, because that's what was missing in my early months as an investor.
Sure. So when you were starting out, you kind of didn't have that mentor that you were looking for. So now one of your ways of giving back is kind of providing some of that mentorship to people, as well as becoming, early stage real estate investors. So tell me about like the real estate journey, just, when you got into finding a deal, or you wanted to kind of come across ways of finding out how you wanted to finance these deals and stuff like that.
So I sort of kind of came into it because I had to. So I bought my very first deal, which was a new build right outside of Fort Campbell. Fort Campbell is in Kentucky technically, but the town that I bought in is in Clarksville, Tennessee. And it was a new build. I paid, retail price for it, had to put 20% down. So it tied up a lot of cash, but it was a great investment in terms of, I still have the same tenant in that property. They pay rent every month. They pay above market rents. They're great tenants. And it was probably the best thing for me to do on my first investment in terms of building that confidence, because it's never been an issue. It's cash flowed from the beginning. It's just been a great property and a great experience. However, it tied up a ton of cash. So I think when like after closing costs, I had like $65,000, and that was like all I had to spend. And so I was kind of hooked right from my first deal right after I bought that. But I was like, I don't have any more money. Like how am I going to buy my next one? It's going to take me years to put the couple $100s that I'm making a month off of this property toward another down payment. So I decided to start looking for something that I could flip. I basically came up with like another $25,000, and I just knew that I needed to turn that into some real money that I could go potentially buy another property with, or
Where'd
something
you come
like
up
that.
with the 2,500 or you said 25,000?
Yeah. So 25,000. So I basically just, Oh, you know where I got it? Actually, a big chunk of it, I had gotten some VA disability and I got back paid for that.
Okay.
So I got a chunk from that. And then I think I sold my car. I downgraded or something like that.
Okay. I
I don't
like
even
it.
remember, but I found like basically found the money that I needed. And kind of really taught myself at that point to separate, the business money from the personal, because I didn't ever want to feel like I was spending like my family's money or I was putting my family at risk, especially
Sure.
at that point in my investing. So it was just really important that I like wrapped my head around separating that investment. And so anyway, so I ended up finding a property that I was able to get seller financed, and he only had me put $12,000 down. The sale price on the property was like $27,000. And after repair value was like $69,000. So I got into it at like $12,000 down, seller finance, so pretty low risk. And for people that don't know what that means, it's basically if the seller has enough equity in the house, they can pretty much become the bank and loan the money back to the buyer. So I was basically paying the mortgage off from the person who, like, toward the person who sold it to me.
Yep.
And so I only had to spend 12 there, and then the rest of the money went into the rehab, which didn't go very far. So my dad and I actually put tons of sweat equity into this house, and we
So you're
flipped
doing
it.
this yourself, kind of just going in there. And
Yeah, so pretty much flipped it ourselves. We brought some painters in. We had to get a little electrical work done and a fair amount of plumbing. But for the most part, we did it. I laid all the floors. We did vinyl plank floors. My dad like framed out a laundry room. The water heater was right in the middle of the kitchen. So rather than moving that, we basically just framed out a laundry room off the side of the kitchen, put the water heater in there, and the washer and dryer were also in the kitchen. So anyway, we ended up finishing that, selling it on the back end, and I made about $14,000 off of that. So I basically turned my 25K into almost 40. And I kind of realized like, there's something here. Like, I just sort of had this mentality before that first of all, I was never going to find the right deal. I had this bad attitude about like everybody was competition and there's too many people doing it and there's no way I'm going to get in the door. And I now have a much different mentality, a much different idea. Like, I don't think of other people as competition anymore. I don't think that the deals are ever going to run out.
Yep.
So that was a huge mindset change for me. And then also just like realizing I can find this money one way or another. And after that, I learned that you could buy properties with your IRA. And so I bought a duplex with my IRA. My husband bought a triplex.
Is this a self-directed IRA?
Self-directed, yeah. So our IRAs were with USAA, and they were called self-directed IRAs. And when I called them to ask them what I could do to direct it, they were basically like, nothing. Like, they were like, we decide where that goes and how it gets invested. And they were like, you can give us some minimal guidance. But I was like, okay, this doesn't really sound like a self-directed IRA. So I went and I did some more research, and I found a custodian. We used Equity Trust Company. And we just transferred the money over. It was relatively easy, and I just started shopping for properties. I tried to get a loan against my IRA the first time to just put like basically put that money that I had in my account as a down payment and have the rest of it loaned, but that I couldn't get my lender to do it. And at that point, I didn't think lenders would do it, like loan against an IRA, because your IRA is going to make you have a non-recourse loan.
Yep.
And most lenders are not going to want to go for that. So, but I did learn that there are definitely ways you can do that. There's different, you can get hard money, you can get private money to do that. But I ended up finding one that I could purchase outright in Illinois, never saw the property, purchased it, got tenants in almost immediately. And that's been a great investment ever since.
You were able to did you use your IRA for this?
Yes. So I was able to cover the cost of the entire property with my IRA on that.
Oh, so you bought the whole property cash with your IRA.
Yep, exactly. So that's kind of why I had to go into this this Illinois market, just to find something that was, because I knew that if I had to put all the money in cash, obviously I wouldn't have anything to renovate the property. So I had to be able to afford it, and then it also needed to be move-in ready. So it took me a while to find one, but I did, and it's been a great investment so far. I kind of had the opposite experience when we invested my husband's IRA. We found a great investment on paper. We found a triplex outside of Nashville, and we were able to get seller financing on it. So we were able to put the deal together with what he had in his account, which really wasn't a lot of money. But once we got the inspection back, there was a fair amount of stuff that had to be done to the property, including a whole new roof. One of the units was never even really an apartment. It didn't have any plumbing. It didn't have a bathroom. It didn't have anything. It didn't have any water coming in at all. So we had to turn that from basically like an open warehouse to an apartment. So we knew there was going to be a lot of renovation required. And so we negotiated our down payment down to like $18,000 or something pretty low, so we could have that cash available to renovate. And we did. And then we put tenants in there, but we weren't able to find anyone to manage it. Nobody wanted to kind of go out to this specific like rural area. And it ended up being a real pain of a property.
Sure.
Because it was a D-class property. The tenants were tough.
Yep.
And so we ended up selling it. We sold it at a bit of a loss. But it didn't faze me at all because we weren't going to use that money till retirement anyway. And I know that we can recoup that loss.
So both these properties were done under a self-directed IRA?
Yep. One my husband's and one in mine. Yep.
So I have some more questions on that. That's interesting. So, so I've never done anything with a self-directed IRA, and the benefit, I just know briefly about some few things I've read, but I'm wondering if you can help clarify some of this for me.
Yeah.
So the idea, you can roll a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA into a self-directed IRA. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
or a 401k.
So it's still the same thing. Like I had a Roth and a traditional. So when I self-directed them, I still had a Roth and a traditional. You can't like combine them or consolidate them or anything without the tax penalties. But yes, you can use either one.
Okay. And then so when you buy a property underneath that shelter, from my understanding, it sounds like there's just more like restrictions on what you can deduct for tax purposes and stuff like that, right? And then like you have to leave everything underneath that umbrella. You can't take it out as cash or dividend or anything like that.
Exactly. Right? Yep. You can't do anything that benefits you until you are of retirement age. So
Yes.
You can't technically, if you were to buy a property in there, you're not even allowed to change a light bulb. You have to source that out. Every single thing has to be sourced out. And every penny, would get paid from the tenant to the landlord, from the tenant to the property manager. And then the property manager would cut the check back to the custodian. Like you don't see it. You watch it grow or, decrease in your account. Every time you have to pay a bill, you request it through the custodian. So everything comes and goes through them. And, there's not quite as much oversight as I thought. They're not going to tell you can't buy something or anything like that. They're just basically facilitating the transactions back and forth.
So you almost have to have a property manager. You can't self-manage, I'd imagine.
So yes, you're not allowed to self-manage. And that's pretty much why we had to sell it, because we had a property manager at one point. And then once we got the inherited tenants, we had to get rid of them. And he just kind of proved that he was more on their side than ours. And he was kind of we were trying to get them out, obviously, so we could renovate the property. And they weren't paying rent. And we didn't want to go to eviction because we didn't want to wait that amount of time. We wanted to get the renovation done and get it making money. But he would go to them and tell them their rights. He just would say, you don't have to leave until your 14 days is up. We were trying to encourage them to get out, and we actually gave one of them cash for their keys. They hadn't been paying rent, and we said, listen, I'll give you $125 if you move out right now. And they were all for it, and they needed $100, and it worked out great. But the property manager was telling us not to do that and really against it. And we appreciated his recommendations and stuff, but he was almost siding with the tenants and giving them what they could use against us if they ever took us to court. And I was like, dude, you're supposed to be working for me. You're supposed to be helping us come up with some creative solutions to get these guys out. And at one point we helped them move their bed out, and he got super upset with us. And he was like, you could get, you're opening yourself up to liability. And I was like, okay, you're not my property manager. But he was
Sure.
the only person who would do it. And obviously we didn't hire him again on the other side. So
Okay, so we kind of gone over two techniques I think are interesting as far as, someone that might be listening to this that's like, I want to get into real estate investing, but I don't necessarily have a ton of cash that I could use. One would be the seller financing option as a way of kind of lowering the down payment that you have to put into it. So seller financing, just to recap of what that looks like, it's when you don't necessarily get the bank involved. It's where the previous owner has enough equity in it to kind of become the bank, and you make payments to the previous owner at a certain interest rate, and you can accumulate properties that way. There's a ton of landlords I know in this area that do deals like that all the time, and people always reach out and they're like, hey, how do you get these seller financing deals? And I'm like, I don't know. It just kind of depends on the guy you find. Have you ever found a good technique for finding seller financing deals, or what has worked well for you of just finding people willing to do it?
Yeah. So first of all, just to go back, you said, typically lower down payment. I have found situations that I can get a lower down payment, but it's actually typically a higher down payment. It's usually more than the 20 or 25% down. But it ultimately comes down to the motivation of the seller. If the seller, first of all, they have to have the equity in the property or have to have the ability to sell it. Like if you have $100,000 property, but the guy owes $25,000 in back taxes, you're going to at least need to bring that much to the table. Even if they own it outright, you're not going to be able to transfer title until those taxes are paid off, unless you wanted to assume them. But so it just depends on the situation. And so typically if I do find a property that I'm interested in, and I'm a real estate agent, so I can look into tax records and stuff like that and see how long it's been owned by, whoever owns it, and if it's been refied or something like that over time. So you kind of get an idea of how much equity they might have in it. And that's when I ask the question. I almost always ask the question anyway, whether or not they have the ability to seller finance. And it's usually either, oh, there's a possibility, or just a hard no. And then if there's a possibility, or just even any indication that they could put a deal together, I would usually offer them two different options. I would offer either, a financed option or a cash option or something. And then I would offer something that's much sweeter, but financed by them. So it keeps more cash in my pocket. It pays them more over time, but it keeps more cash in my pocket. So it might appeal to them in the long term that way. So I just kind of show them, this is what it could look like if I brought you cash, or this is what it could look like if you financed it, and you make a lot more money over time. So it just depends on what they want, what their goals are. I don't think there's really anyone who tells you that there's a way to find that there's probably really not a system, but.
Yeah, I've found the same thing, just asking. And I think that depending on how motivated they are, like I was looking at buying some office space before, and they were pretty motivated, and he was interested in just holding a second mortgage on it so that I wouldn't have to really bring any down payment to it. So they were going to hold the 20% down payment essentially and finance that. And then the bank would finance the rest of it. So there's a lot of techniques like that, I think, that are helpful. And like you said, a lot of times it's just about how sweet the offer is, I guess. And I've found with landlords, some will go down as low as no down payment. And there was one guy, he had 4 or 5 duplexes, and he was going to sell them all seller financing on no down payment. The reason I never picked up that deal was because I was firing my property manager at the time, and I didn't want to take on 8 units or whatever that was without a property manager in place. So I have to follow up with him actually. So anyway, but and then the second piece of this is the self-directed IRA, which is interesting because a lot of people might have a job or might be working and their employer pays contributions to a 401k, or they've already been maxing out their Roth IRA, and they think that money is like untouchable forever. There might be some creative techniques, it sounds like, of how you can maybe tap into that in the purpose of moving it to a self-directed IRA, which then allows you to invest in real estate, still not touchable until you retire, but you can at least start using that cash to purchase real estate investments, right?
Right, so. Exactly. And you're not capped at that, $5,500 or $4,500 annual contribution. You can make whatever that asset returns, whatever that rate of return is. And there's so much that you can do with a self-directed IRA. I've only ever invested in property, but I think now that we sold that one from my husband's, we might look into investing in a business, which you can absolutely do.
Wow. Okay. So let's say I have a Roth IRA and I've been putting money into it, and let's say there's like $15,000 in that Roth IRA, you can move that into a self-directed IRA, and then whatever the growth on that is still tax-free, correct? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so it's the same rules, depending on whether yours is a Roth or a traditional. The same rules apply, but you're no longer, from the way that I understand it, and please note I am no expert, there's no limit on what what you can contribute toward it, which your contribution in this case will hopefully just be coming from the return.
So what you could still put more money in than the normal $5,500.
So you can't. Well, so you can add a contribution. You can put your like this one, for example. We did end up contributing to finish up some renovations, but like my property is a better one, the one in my IRA. So that one it basically nets me $1,200 per month. And so, over time, I'm making, what is that, 14,400 over the whole year, right? 1,200 times 12. So yeah, so I'm basically, my tenants are paying my contribution, right? So instead of the 4,500 that I would be limited to.
Yeah, I got it. So it's like a reinvested dividend is probably how the IRS is looking at that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's not capped.
And that's not capped because that's growth.
Right.
And then same with the growth of the property. But then if you wanted to dump money into it for whatever reason to pay down debt, that would probably be capped at the traditional or the regular Roth. Okay.
Yeah. Or you just have to deal with the tax, the tax implications of that.
Got it. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So those are two really interesting strategies for someone that might not be, that might think that they're not in a financial position to start investing into real estate, but there certainly seems like some other creative options.
Exactly.
Anything else that you've ever run across just in your, experience of flipping and buying rentals and stuff?
Yeah. So another thing you can do, if you did get a loan on a property, you can use seller financing for the down payment. Maybe the seller will finance that down payment. That's an option. I've not used that, but
that's what I was kind of talking about with the second mortgage. There's people do that a lot, especially with commercial, surprisingly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just because they know that the time on market for someone to, first of all, someone to be capable of making that purchase is just going to take a lot of time. So I think in commercial, you probably get a little bit more creative or, kind of have to in terms of finding someone who has a down payment. I'm doing 2 flips right now that I just used hard money for on the front end. So currently have an interest only mortgage payment every month. And then I'll sell these. They're both on the market. I'm actually anticipating an offer on one today in the next couple of days. I just got a call from my realtor. The other one will go live, will go on the market officially the day before Thanksgiving. And those ones are just straight up flips. I'll sell them and, net the keep the profit off of those for the next property. But those are financed through hard money lender. And another option that I've looked into for one of the properties, because it's been on the market for a little bit longer, I think it's been on 33 days. I was hoping it would sell quicker, but by the end of the month, if it hasn't sold or I'm not under contract, I'll look into refinancing that. So that BRRRR method, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So that's a great option too, because that property, for example, I'm basically $25,000 in with the hard money, and I'd pull some of that cash back out and have I'd have over $40,000 in equity. So rather than that down payment, rather than having to come up with that out of pocket, I'm basically $15,000 out of pocket for $40,000 in equity.
So tell me about the process of getting a hard money lender. What's the difference between that and going through a traditional bank? What are the underwriting rules that usually go along with a hard money lender versus a normal loan officer at a bank?
I'm not really sure there are any rules, to be honest with you. So obviously, like the bank, we know they're depending, if you're using something conventional, Freddie Mae or Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. I'm saying that backwards. That's who makes those rules. The VA loan rules, FHA loan, those are, hard and fast rules. You can't stray from
conforming
those.
Standards or whatever they call them.
Yeah. So a hard money lender, I think typically they obviously have a lot more leeway. It's private money. So I think the standard has sort of just come from what's like from the competition. They've kind of just all come on board with a similar, sort of down payment, and then similar interest rate. So right now, what you look at for hard money is like 2.5 to 4 points on the front end, which a point is just 1% of the loan. So if it's $100,000 loan and you owe 4 points on the front, you're bringing $4,000 to closing, and that's money you'll never get back. That's just a fee. That's similar to like an origination fee with a conventional lender. And then your interest rate, it's usually when you do a flip, it's going to be interest only. There's no principal or anything like that, usually for 6 months. And then a lot of them will give you an option to extend that 6 months, another 6 months after the first, after your first 6 months, because they typically don't want the property back. They just want their money back. So they're willing to let you keep paying interest. So you just pay interest only. And that's usually 12%. It's probably 8 to 12% for a new investor. You're looking at probably 3 points up front and then 12%.
Are they like, how invasive is are they running your credit score and stuff and Social Security? Or are they just looking at the deal?
No, it's more so about the deal. They do want to look at your credit, but they're just going to ask you for a credit summary. They're not going to pull a hard inquiry for the most part. They may, if you did like show them something that was like, a 580, they might want to look a little bit more into you. But basically I've used 2 different hard money lenders, and all they've asked me for is a credit report within 6 months. And then they just want to see that your account balances. They just want to see that you have the reserve that they want, which usually isn't very much, because they also will lend you the rehab as well. So I'm like, here's a credit report I pulled 4 months ago, and then here's a screenshot of my checking accounts. And they're like, okay, you're good to go.
Yeah. So it's obviously much, much less invasive than if you go through a traditional loan option at the bank.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it needs to be in some ways because you need the money quick. Like if you're going to a hard money lender, it's because you're trying to get something fast, and hopefully not hold on to it for very long. So they do everything very quickly. I think I've closed in like 6 business days before. So it's pretty impressive at how quickly they can come up with the money. But there's some things you got to know about that too. I didn't really know going into it how the draw process was going to work when I was trying to get the rehab money back. So when you loan out the money for the property and the rehab, they don't give you the rehab money in the beginning. They'll only give you the rehab money as you do the project, because they want to make sure that you're actually using that money for the project. Because if they were to ever have to sell the property because you gave it back to them, they want to make sure it's worth what they've put into it. So you have to request inspections, and there's a little bit of a delay from when you get the inspection, and then from when they send in their report, and then when they decide what they're going to give you and how long it takes to wire it over. And so basically I kind of learned that is just them paying you back. You kind of have to have you have to have more cash reserves than you might think, because in a lot of ways you're going to be paying for that stuff, and then they're just going to be paying you back for it. So I usually try to not loan the rehab money anyway, just get money for the property and try to do the renovation on my own, because otherwise you're paying interest and you're paying points on money that is not in your pocket.
Right. Yeah, this is all great stuff, because one of my friends that's a hard money lender, his big thing is like, I don't want to have an excuse for someone. Like, nobody should have an excuse for not going through with a deal, because like, it's just whatever the circumstances, there's always something you can do. You can reach out to someone and get that, money that's fast in your pocket. And that's what these hard money guys do, especially the ones that are, ethical and have an NMLS, number and stuff like that. So this is great. This is, I think, golden information, especially for someone that's interested in becoming a real estate investor and they don't know where to start. This is really a good spot to go. Just what else do you know, just kind of that you think was helpful as you learned along the way that you would like to share with everybody?
I think for me, it was just that attitude and the mindset is what's changed everything. I kind of started out, I said, I want to make $1,000 a month. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was like, that's pretty good for a side gig. And, by my second property, I was making more than that. And I was like, that's kind of a weak goal. I'm going to go for $3,000 a month. And I think now I'm less than 2 years in as an investor. I think I cash flow like $6,400 a month on my portfolio. And so my goal now is 10,000. And I think that in another 2 years, that might be 20,000. So my perspective has changed significantly. Like money just has a total different value to me than it did prior to being an investor. But I think really that mindset and the mentality is what has allowed me to take it from just kind of a side gig to a serious business, and then to also something that is just going to give us complete financial freedom for our family, and not just for us right now, but for our future, and something I can hand down to my daughters as well.
What kind of gave you the courage when you got started? Like, what was that thing that like, I just need to get involved and do this deal? Was it just like you just did it, or was there something that like you thought of, or what kind of gave you that push?
I think the very first one, it was really just my husband who was like, I kind of second guessed it. Even when we were going through like negotiations on the offer, I decided to put in the offer, but it was, we were going back and forth a little bit on some of the details. And I was like, maybe this is a sign, maybe we should back out. And he was like, listen, you know what you're doing. You've done your homework. You can do this. And he's like, if for some reason it doesn't work out, like we will figure this out, but it's, you're capable of making this decision. And he really kind of made me feel better about spending $65,000 that, I thought would, especially now I didn't have an income. So he kind of gave me that support and that encouragement on the very first one. And then I think that just after that, separating what was like for our family and for our future from what we could, use to grow, has helped me not worry about like if we have a minor setback here or there. And then also to know that, in any type of investing you're going to take a step back here and there. You're going to maybe lose something here and there, but just know that over time, you're going to grow it much bigger than you ever could have, if you weren't taking control over it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice. And I mean, what do you think, what do you say to people that maybe don't have that kind of support with their spouse, or they don't have that kind of friendship, someone that's kind of pushing them and they want to kind of take the next level, but they just need the support? What would you say to someone like that?
I would tell them to go find it. I would tell them that that's what my network offers. And that's what, when you come into like my coaching platform, my different programs or the courses that I offer, you get that network along with it, and you get me working alongside of you. But I also teach people that, like Jim Rohn says, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. Yeah. Yep. So like, if you want to elevate your game, you need to hang out with people that are going to elevate your game. You can't be hanging out with people that are going to drag you down, or, I'm not saying like cut your sister out of your life because she's really negative, but in terms of your business and in terms of what you're wanting to do, like you need to surround yourself with people who are going to support you in that, and they're going to help you, or at least, hold you accountable to your goals. And that's, every person can do that, no matter where they are, no matter what their circumstances are. They're capable of finding that somewhere. They just have to look.
So tell me a little bit about your network and your course and everything that you've kind of been working on as far as a coaching perspective, and how you can help people that might be listening to this and be like, look, this all sounds like really good stuff. Might be a little beyond me. How can I get the support I need, and how can I work with you directly?
Yeah. So when I first launched my course to be something that you do like in a group, and it would take a month. It was a 4-week course. Every month it would start a new iteration, and you'd go through like with your cohort and kind of do it together. But I quickly learned that not everybody is on the same timeline as me. Some people are faster and some people are slower, and just depends on what they've got going on and what their goals are. So I made it self-paced. But we still do have like a collaborative network. We still, we have a Facebook group, and we share the stuff that we're working on, like those people that I'm coaching right now and that are that have purchased my courses. And I just encourage, I put updates on there. I encourage them to share what they're doing. Recently, a big storm came through one of the towns there where a lot of people have investments, and some people had like tree damage and different things from the storm. And it was really cool to see people offering different advice about contractors, or different advice about dealing with the insurance companies, because that's not something that I ever thought would be a part of this network. I never, like, that wasn't really part of the initial plan, but it was just really cool to see people helping each other out that way. But yeah, you get personalized, like if you take my my recountability course, you sort of get that accountability from me and from the group, but you start out by setting your own goals, and you start out by learning the power of real estate and figuring out what you can do with it starting now, whether you decide to go real aggressive or you just decide to take your time and purchase a property here and then one next year. You can kind of see how that plays out over time, and I give you all the tools to do that. And then you come up with your own goals and your own timeline, and then I help you to go after the things you want, because not everybody wants to flip. Some people want to, buy commercial properties, and other people just want to buy single family homes over and over and over again. Everybody kind of has a different plan. And other people just have a specific rate of return that they're looking for, but they're open to any type of property or any type of structure. So I try to help them where they are. And we start with the mindset, the attitude, and make sure that they have goals, that they've set them that are achievable. But I mean, most people will set them at very achievable goals. They think coming into it that this is going to be hard to achieve this, and that. So I think that they kind of reach low. And so I encourage them to reach beyond that. And then I show them like, we can accomplish this together, and their perspectives kind of change as well, like mine did. Yeah.
I think that's a ton of value for people that are trying to get in the space, and they need to find someone that I think that they can trust, someone that's ethical, but someone that's going to, like you said, push them beyond what their original goals are. I think we've set our goals either ridiculously too far or it's just way too short. And I think that having someone to bounce that goal off of gives you kind of that realistic expectation of what you can hit. And I think your course certainly sounds like it's going to help people with that exact issue. So how does someone, find the course? Where do I got to go if I wanted to buy it right now?
So you can purchase it right on my website. It's bcglobalinvestments.com. That's BC. It's for my daughters, Blake and Carly. Globalinvestments.com. And that's where you can find all the information on the courses. There's like an About Me tab, and then there's an Education tab. It has my recountability course, and then it has my flips course. And we are just working on an ebook right now that's going to be a beginner's guide. So there's a pre-order for that as well. And then there's individual coaching. I don't have a set plan for that really at this point. It's just kind of as needed. Sure. I have somebody right now that's doing some stuff, and he's basically paying me out of the profits from what he does. So we kind of set that structure up. So, I'm a little bit flexible when it comes to that stuff. But otherwise, yeah, the courses are there. I'm on Facebook. I'm Erin Helly, BC Global Investments, LLC. And then I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Awesome. So this is certainly an excellent resource, I think, for people trying to get into the real estate space. Yeah, people reach out to me all the time with just, how do we get involved, or how do I start investing in real estate? I'm kind of a beginner or novice. So I think having you on this show to kind of walk people through some of the technicalities of getting financing, structuring some of these creative deals, then also giving them a resource to follow up with you and start doing that, because I wouldn't say that my expertise is getting beginners investing into real estate. I got to focus on other stuff. So having you here to just be that endorsement, I'm endorsing you because I think you have an awesome business and you can certainly help people with that. So I think that's going to be a great resource for all you guys that are interested in jumping into the real estate game here in your next season of life. So, Erin, final question is just, what would you say would be a good book you'd recommend to people, whether on life or in real estate specifically?
I think just generically, I would probably recommend one of Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass, or You Are a Badass at Making Money. Just because she just opens your mind to the idea that whether you're a dog walker or Wall Street, the amount of money that you can make is virtually limitless. And I think understanding that and buying into that is really what separates the haves from the have-nots.
I think that's awesome. So You Are Badass by Jen Sincero. And I think, with that said, this was an absolutely awesome chance to have you on and speak with us. Thank you so much for your time today. Make sure you go to, what was it again? It was the website so people can connect with you. It was BC
globalinvestments.com.
Okay, bcglobalinvestments.com. We'll make sure we have show notes that reflect that as well. Well, Aaron, any last words to the listeners and any last advice that you would give people that are trying to become the best versions of themselves or become, business moguls like yourself?
I guess I would just say, just have faith in yourself, invest in yourself. There's nothing that you can't accomplish. You just need to wrap your head around that. And some days are going to be better than others, but as long as you constantly know that you can do whatever you want, that's all that matters.
Well, thanks so much, Aaron, for coming on the show. Once again, guys, you can go like or subscribe this, whatever platform you're looking at. Make sure you guys go share this, leave comments, reviews, share it with people you think might be interested in learning about some of the subjects that we talked about today. It really goes a long way in helping us spread this message. Make sure you go thank Erin for having her wonderful advice here today and taking the time to do this. So thank you so much, Erin, for coming on the show. Go out there, be somebody, guys.
What's up, everybody? This is your host, AJ Armstrong. You can follow me on Instagram at AaronArmstrong33. That's Aaron Armstrong 33, or you can go to my website, aaronjarmstrong.com. Thanks so much for listening through to the end. I wanted to also introduce you guys to our Facebook community. So you can go to Winners Waltz Worldviews on Facebook, and it's a group where we can offer, different opportunities for you guys to ask questions. If you have a Q&A or something in your business or a challenge in your life that you want to bring up, that's the community to ask it. And then I can also share that with all of our listeners on our social media platforms. The final thing I wanted to share with you guys, something Marissa and I have been so excited for. It's been really chomping at me to freaking tell you guys. And it's our Personal Growth Ventures Retreat. So our Personal Growth Ventures Retreat is going to be located on the island of St. Lucia. It's going to be a business seminar combined with personal growth and development. And we're also adding in something nobody else has ever done in a seminar that I've heard of. And that's fitness and adventure. So these are the things that are going to help push us to our limits. It's going to help us break through our fears. And these adventures are going to be one of a kind. If you want to find out more about what our adventures entail, what's going to be involved in the education session, and where this is all going to be happening and when, you can go to our website, personalgrowthventures.com. That's personalgrowthventures.com. It's also going to be located in the show notes. So with that said, guys, thanks so much for listening through to the end. Once again, go be somebody.